Have you ever stared into the void and thought, is it possible that I make something very terrible look incredible? You know the drill, I know the drill. We all knew that Jade Stars is completely garbage before it finally received any sort of buffs to alleviate its issue. Instead of 30% base status chance, Jade Stars now has 100% base status chance and recharge 7 shots per second instead of 2. Does it change anything? Not really. Jade Stars still didn't move past from being a terrible ability. There is no reason for this ability to only provide you some cheap or low amounts of damage. Anything other than damage, for example, a small but noticeable debuff that centers around hit to all affected targets will immediately 10 times its value, even if you revert this buff and just implement the aforementioned change. Anyways, let's see what Jade Stars is able to bring to the table. On each hit from our weapons, range or melee, the stars are able to hit the target, applying a hit proc to the struck enemy and anyone 4 meters around. It being an ability that can apply hit status means that it is eligible for Archon Vitality's double hit proc as shown. It also recharges very fast, allowing fast fire rate or any weapons that hits a lot to shine well. And damage from blast procs are able to be registered by Jade Stars, causing additional stars to be fired. And lastly, any sort of lingering feel caused by the weapon are also eligible to trigger the stars. To summarize, these are the notable traits that Jade Stars had, and all the weapon synergies today will be played around these traits, particularly these 3. 6 weapons will be showcased for today, 2 for primaries, 2 for secondaries, and 2 for melees. I will also like to mention that unless the weapon can circumvent around the hit inherit problem, hit will not be modded and all the setup will be done on Rhino, and the reason is not because I want to play Rhino. As much as I want to do this without Raw, the damage it dishes out is simply too little to matter, even after slotting in Archon Vitality. Without a very huge raw percentage, it is very hard for Jade Stars to make a clear difference, thus making Rhino a must for today's setup. Speaking of, this is the build I will be running on Rhino throughout this video. Archon Vitality for hit procs with an arcane slot that opts for plus fire rate on primaries/secondaries or attack speed if melees are used. And this is the shot that I go with. Starting off strong, we got Mutalist Cernos. It has a lingering feel aka Toxin Clouds, while able to prime Viral to help Jade Stars deal more damage. Not to mention that it can reliably make Jade Star fire 7 shots per second, something that allows Jade Stars to be in its best shape. The build is pretty fun to play around, and the existence of Jade Stars allow the Toxin Clouds to deal significantly more damage as hit procs provide armor strip, while the Toxin Clouds allow Jade Stars to proc very often, forming a positive feedback loop. If you want, I highly recommend giving this a try. Speaking of lingering effect, how can we not remember Kuva Ogris? Kuva Ogris, especially with Nightwatch Napalm, leaves a very large area that applies hit procs, with a fixed status chance of 68%. And unlike Mutalist Cernos, it allows a hit inherit setup capable of making Jade Stars deal much more damage, although Jade Stars will have a slower fire rate in exchange. The entire setup is not bad at all by any means, although it is quite apparent that it is Kuva Ogris doing most of the work for Jade Stars, but still, it plays into Nightwatch Napalm very seamlessly. If you were to keep the theme of lingering effects while moving on to secondaries, what secondary you will be thinking of? For me, it's Coda Pox. Other than a lingering feel, it is also able to mod for corrosive and blast. The former helps Jade Stars deal more damage, and the latter makes Jade Stars trigger more often. It is very similar to the last two choices that I recommend trying out with Jade Stars. The existence of hit proc does make blast proc trigger more often, and if you want to try it out, feel free. Is it all just the lingering feels? That's kinda boring, no? Obviously, lingering feels are generally the best with Jade Stars, but there are also setups that doesn't make use of lingering feels too. For example, Epitaph. It is able to circumvent its lack of lingering feels through huge AoE radius, plus occasional blast proc and a decent enough fire rate after arcane velocity, while having the ability to opt for a hit inherit setup to maximize the damage output of Jade Stars. This is easily one of the best showing of Jade Stars one could ever make, forcing Jade Stars into a main DPS role, and honestly, it is not bad. It is undeniable that there are far better choices out there, notably the superior version of Jade Stars aka No Star, but it performs, and that is all it needs to achieve. With that out of the way, this leaves us with the two final picks with an asterisk. This is because one of them is not about a specific melee weapon, but a melee arcane, melee afflictions. So long as the chosen melee is capable of triggering melee afflictions in quick succession, it fits into this category. If you don't understand how melee afflictions work, I recommend you checking out this video first before you proceed. What is good about Jade Stars is that it allows melee afflictions to ramp its damage quicker when there's any Bane mod / Raw or Elementalist in play, due to having one additional status proc outside of Blast. It is also a pretty carefree way of applying hit procs, as you only need to strike an enemy with your melee, which saves you lots of casting to prime set status effect onto a target, which is pretty nice. And please, allow me to circle back to a setup that has a lingering feel once more. Because what is Zenistar if we don't mention its hit disc? Zenistar. It always has a special place in my heart. Zenistar is able to leave a base 4 meter lingering feel that scales with range mods, dealing pure hit damage with a base 50% status chance, lasting 10 seconds, with an additional 10 seconds per combo multiplier, up to 120 seconds. And just like the previous setups, it is also able to opt for a hit inherit setup, with the additional benefit of melee vortex grouping enemies up for maximum Jade Stars value. Is it the most efficient setup out of all setups today? Nuh-uh. But it is easily the most interesting setup that I have showcased today, and if you want to try it out, feel free. Despite Jade Stars is able to contribute when you play around it, the reality is still the same. Jade Stars is still way too weak to even be utilized outside of one frame and a selected few weapons. It still needs a buff and something else to really put it from the abyss that filled itself with garbage. That's all for today. See you all next time. Goodbye.